Welcome to 938 Online. My name is Graham Bowen, and I am so glad you're joining us here for this broadcast. And we are getting excited around here for our next 938 Live in-person gathering. We are going to be meeting at Thornbury Farm CSA at 10 a.m. on June 6th. That's a week away. We are also getting excited for our men's barbecue. If you are in 6th grade or older, young men, I want to see you there. We are continuing on in our One Another series, and we are talking about what it looks like to be a one another people in an us and them world. And if you remember, back when we were talking about being all in as a church, we did our very first Battle Box Challenge, where the Gen Z took on the Gen X. Now we are continuing the saga with the Boomers and the Millennials. So as we learn what makes us different as people, we get to hear about each other's stories and we get to learn how to have compassion. And this allows us to grow in being a one another people. So I'm going to turn it over to our Battle Box contestants this week.
The Battle Box.
All right, guys, you ready for this one?
First question.
All right. In 1970, the album Deja Vu debuted to become one of the all-time best-selling albums. The album was released by this four-person group.
I can see the cover in my head.
See the cover in his head.
Four-person group.
Anything.
You never know.
I have nothing.
Beatles or four people? Are they four?
The Beatles.
The Beatles?
We don't know.
Tough
Tough crowd.
Wow.
Man. Okay.
You want the answer?
Yes.
Yes.
We do.
Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Ooh.
Wow.
Do you know that?
No
No.
idea.
Oh my God, they don't know.
Okay.
Yes.
What does FOMO mean?
I know. Fear of missing out.
All right, number 2. Decades ago, TV stations ended their evening programming and went black or static at midnight. What was the last thing they did before signing off each night?
Ours are way easier. I have no idea. Like,
I'm not gonna tell you the weather.
yeah.
It's midnight.
Good night. Good morning.
The answer?
Oh,
They played the national anthem.
Oh. Cool.
This is embarrassing.
This
right
is.
now.
This
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Finish this statement from the TV show Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Now, this is a story all about how.
All about how. Oh, what was it?
About how?
I used to watch that all the time. Oh, he made a new life in LA. I don't know.
All right, people, everyone with me. Now, this is a story all about how my life got turned upside down.
Life got turned upside down.
Who were the 3 lead vocalist members of the Rat Pack, an informal group of entertainers of the 1960s and 70s?
I have no idea.
Wow.
I don't know. All these music.
Yeah. I'm not even gonna try and guess.
Yeah,
I have
don't know.
no idea.
We have no idea.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I give up.
I don't know.
Who knows? Anybody know?
Frank Sinatra?
1,
Sammy Davis Jr.
2.
Dino.
Yeah!
Nice. Good job, guys.
I'm not gonna be able to show my face again.
I don't know.
Okay. What does it mean to slide into someone's DMs?
DMs,
DM.
not DM. I was gonna say domain.
It's 2 words. DM.
Yeah, DM.
DM.
Nope.
Let's just
Sorry.
say something.
It's alright.
Dog matter.
Dog manure.
You just
Not
slide
quite.
into it.
It means to direct message someone in a flirtatious way.
Oh,
Yeah.
I did not
Yeah,
know that.
like on Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Instagram?
Yes,
What's
yeah.
Instagram?
I know. What's that?
All right, here we go. Howard Johnson's, or Hojo, is an American chain of restaurants, hotels, or motels. As of 2016, only one Howard Johnson's restaurant remained in the United States. Where is it located? And I'll take the state.
What's the name of it again?
Howard Johnson's.
Massachusetts?
No.
Close.
New York.
Lake George,
New
New York.
York.
Lake George.
I was like,
Okay.
Bob was from there. So.
We're
Bob's
0 for 4.
loving this. Are we over 4?
Yeah.
All right. Describe this word. Slay. Like
Surprised
he
me.
slayed something.
Oh, that's different.
Or like Slay Queen.
Oh, he slayed something. He
Queen.
slayed. Slayed. They conquered it. They slayed it. I don't know. Do you know? Give me another guess.
Drama.
I mean, I feel like maybe they
No,
could get like
no,
half credit.
no.
I don't know.
No.
It's like it's to be like killing it in something, you know, like he or she, man, they
Nasty.
slayed
Conquered
that
it.
thing.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
She conquered it.
Well, it's like they did a really good job at something.
Nailed
Like
it.
they nailed it. Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
Nasty.
Should've
So
said it that way.
slay, yeah.
All right.
Half right. All right.
All right.
Your turn.
Who was singer Ricky Nelson's TV parents? Who's the Ricky Nelson, right?
Oh, I don't know.
So Ricky Nelson's
Yeah.
a TV character,
Yeah.
and who are his parents?
Singer. Yep.
Yeah.
And he was,
And he was a
too.
singer too.
Yeah. Okay, I don't know.
No,
I don't know.
We don't
No.
know. It's really
Ozzy
bad.
and
so
Ozzy
see.
and Harry.
Ozzy and
Oh,
Harry.
okay, Ozzy
Okay.
and Harry. Okay, got it.
My self-esteem is
I
plugged.
know it is. It is.
You gotta get up in there.
And I'm feeling really old.
All right, here we go.
Okay, what is a GIF? GIF.
Something about a friend.
All right.
It's a moving clip you send to someone in a text.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, so it's a little video that like lasts 3 or 4 seconds, and it plays on
Yeah.
repeat.
And the text is.
I'll show you.
All right, last one.
All right.
What comic strip was made famous by Gary Trudeau?
Your guess is
Garfield.
Not bad. Good. Doonesbury.
Doonesbury. Okay.
We have one more.
Oh,
Tough
yeah.
crowd.
Oh, one
Tough
more.
crowd.
We gotta
Yeah,
get this
one
one.
more.
Wait,
Okay.
we've only got one.
Okay. Name one of the Jonas Brothers.
Nick. Great job,
Great job, guys.
On the next two.
The Battle Box.
Big congrats to Bob and Jan Curran, Team Boomer, overcoming Team Millennial. Zach and Rachel, hey, sorry guys, they gave you really hard questions. If any of you might be disappointed with Zach and Rachel and their performance, I want to let you know I know their parents, and I know that the houses they grew up, their house was a very, very, very fine house. They probably even had 2 cats in the yard, and even though life used to be so hard, their parents made things easier, I am sure, but they did not teach their children well, at least the music of Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. Now, what I do know is I've been kissing up to the boomers for this entire introduction, and I've alienated 75% of the people who are watching. Hang in there. Hang in there today, because I am going to make your life happier. Because I'm going to tap into a whole bunch of research that connects the topic of today to just a simpler lightness of being, less stress,
more happiness. But I got to let you know, and I got to warn you here, along the way, you're going to resist me. You're going to either resist me, and you're going to feel a surge of cynicism, or you might even start working up an argument in your mind, probably not even against me, but against somebody else, or you might start hearing some accusation against your own heart. Because I'm going to tell you some things that I think are going to be hard for you to believe, hard for us to believe, and more importantly, apply. So I want you to hang in there. We're in this series called One Another. We live in an us and them world, but we want to be a one another people. And we've been reading every single day a different one another verse. There are 59 verses in the New Testament that use the phrase one another, that call out specific ways we are to treat one another. So that we as a church can be a different kind of people. We want to make sure that we are not an echo of the world, but an alternative to the world, a loving community, an encouraging community, a forgiving, a bearing with one another community. Those are the topics we've already talked about. And today we're going to talk about accepting one another. And this is going to sound almost way too simple, but bear with me. I am going to summarize the most central application of the most theologically rich book in the entire Bible. The book of Romans, at least according to one commentator, is certainly the most theologically rich book in the Bible. Tremendous doctrines on grace and who Jesus is, who the Holy Spirit is, and God's purposes in history. And it all comes to a point with one specific application to the people of Rome. And if you understand ancient Near Eastern culture, what you would know about Rome, it was a cosmopolitan city with all kinds of different cultures represented, all kinds of different ways people were thinking there. You had Jews, you had Greeks, you had Romans, and everybody had a different perspective. And a lot of them brought their own gods to the table. And when the Christians got together, Paul gave them a very thorough and rich understanding of what we know as the gospel, and his application, according to one commentator, comes down clearly to this point in chapter 15, where he says, accept one another then, just as Christ accepted you, in order to bring praise to God. So that's what we're talking about. We're going to talk about what it means to accept one another. And in particular, what does it mean to accept one another? But more importantly, what does it mean to accept one another as Christ has accepted us? Well, let's look at a story in Jesus' life around that. And I want to tell you about the story of Levi. And if you're going to understand who Levi is and how he met Jesus, you need to kind of take all the culture war drama. In the ancient Near Eastern world where Jesus was, they had just as much culture war drama as we did, probably more, except instead of like 50-50 or 40-40 and 20, whatever, however you do the numbers, it was like 99-1. It was like the Romans and everybody else who hated the Romans. Just take all of the energy of our culture war and just focus it on a few people. And basically, the Jewish people hated the Romans who were oppressing them, taxing them, drastically, abusing them, oppressing them, and keeping their country from them and keeping them from being able to rule their own country. And so they hated the Romans, but they hated another kind of person more than they hated the Romans. They hated the Jewish people who worked with the Romans, in particular, the tax collectors. The tax collector would be the person who was in league with the Romans. The tax collector that was the one who grew up Jewish and should know better, but decided in order to make an enormous amount of money, for whatever reason that might be, they would side with the Romans and be the face of taxation, be the face of Romans' grab at their rights, the face of the Romans' grab at their resources. And each town would have their tax collector. And in the town where Jesus spent time, it was Levi. And Levi had hung around Jesus for a little while, but eventually Jesus recognized that, well, Levi's listening. And he said, come follow me. And you know what? Levi chose to follow him. Imagine what that was like, though, for Peter. Peter, who had been forking over, 5 out of 10 fish to Levi as taxation, for his work, and had been given up sometimes up to 60, 70, sometimes even 90% of his profits to Levi to give to the Romans. And it could have been that Levi and Peter grew up in the same synagogue together, but then Levi joined. I mean, imagine Peter's experience of Jesus bringing Levi in to the crowd. But then Jesus takes it a little bit further. Levi has a little bit of a party, and Jesus says, hey, we're going to the party. Now, you need to understand, tax collectors had no real Jewish friends. And so the only people who were going to come to that party were the other people that Jewish people hated. It would have been the other Roman officials. It would probably have been the prostitutes and the entire marginalized community around the prostitution and all those things. All the people that weren't accepted in run-of-the-mill Jewish community probably would have gone to Matthew's party. And there Jesus was. He was hanging out. He was having fun. And he said, disciples, you're coming too. And there's Peter sitting there with this, red Solo cup, hoping, pretending that it was water. Who knows what it was? But they're all feeling really awkward. And just as importantly, the religious people were standing outside the party and said, what is wrong with this man? What is wrong with this man that he would eat? And here, would you understand? To eat and to go to someone's party is to demonstrate fraternity, to demonstrate belonging, to demonstrate acceptance. And here was Jesus accepting the tax collectors, the prostitutes, the corrupt officials, all these marginalized people that weren't accepted in normal Israelite culture. And there Jesus was. See, everybody had given up on Levi. Everybody had given up on him. It's not even like they were trying. They bullied him or were mean to him. They even stopped paying attention to them. I read an article recently that says bullying is clearly something that's really horrible and painful for somebody. But even more painful is ostracizing someone. When you stop listening to them, when you stop paying attention, when you stop recognizing that they are there. And so everybody else had given up on Levi, and they just dealt with it, and they just gave it the taxes that they need to. They gave up that there was any hope for Levi, but Jesus didn't give up on him. He didn't give up on him at all. He recognized him. He paid attention to him. And when Levi threw a party, Jesus showed up at the party. And clearly he enjoyed the people at the party. Because throughout Jesus' ministry, they described him as a friend of the tax collectors and the sinners, the friend of the marginalized, the friend of the worst kind of people. See, one of the things when it comes to acceptance, we start struggling, well, how could Jesus accept this? And what's really important to understand is that Jesus accepts people. He condemns sin, but he accepts people. The world often spins that around because the world accepts sin, but it condemns people, right? And in us and them culture, everybody's canceling each other from either side. They cancel each other. They continue to cancel each other, right? Because you don't agree with me, therefore I cancel you. Jesus doesn't cancel anybody. Jesus doesn't give up on the person that was the face of oppression to all the Jewish people. He wouldn't give up on that person. And the first step he makes that starts to change Levi's life is he accepts him. The world tolerates sin but condemns people. Jesus accepts people and condemns sin. One of the things that's helpful to just kind of think about in this moment is to recognize that, Jesus went to that party and he enjoyed that person. For some of us listening to this, one of the things I want you to hear is that Jesus enjoys you. He enjoys you. He made you. He had a design for your life, and he knows your quirks. He knows the things you continue to trip over, the ways you continue to make mistakes. He does not accept your inappropriate or sinful behavior, but he enjoys you. He really does enjoy you, and he would spend time with you. For some of us, that's not hard to believe, but it might be hard to believe that the enemy or your opponent, that Jesus enjoys that person as well. That Jesus sees past the things that frustrate you, sees past the things that disappoint you, sees past the things that irritate you, sees past the things that outrage you. Jesus sees past all of those things that disgust you about that person. And disgust is a core emotion. And if you're feeling disgust towards somebody, Jesus sees past that. He sees the person he made. And he's able to enjoy that person. Are you? The question this brings up, though, is that if Jesus just accepts people as they are, how does anything change in this world? And the hard thing about acceptance is that we live in such a broken world. There's so much hurt and pain. How can we just accept it for what it is? And sometimes we look at people around us and it just feels like so much potential is squandered. How can we accept that? Or sometimes we think about ourselves. Can I accept myself for who I am? And the principle to know here is that Jesus accepts you as you are, but he does not leave you as you are. What you'll see in Levi's life is that he will follow Jesus and will eventually be known as Matthew. And he'll write the gospel Matthew. He'll tell the story of this party. And the other gospel writers will tell the story of this party as well. And he will come with a new name. And he will use the wealth he's gained to bless others. He will use his access to Jesus to write a story of Jesus that will change billions and billions of lives, be recorded in the Bible, and have unimaginable impact. And it all started with Jesus' acceptance of him, his enjoyment of him. But how does this work? I want you to think of acceptance in this way. Acceptance is the first step and an essential step on the path of change. You've heard me tell stories about Celebrate Recovery, and for 7 years I got to pastor a tremendous 12-step recovery movement. And I observed things about myself in that time frame, and God did a lot of work to change my life in that time. But one of the things I observed is that there's two kinds of people who come to a Celebrate Recovery. There are the first group of people are those who walk around and see the different people there, and they are burdened by all of the problems of their own and all of the problems of all the other people at Celebrate Recovery. And coming to Celebrate Recovery or any kind of recovery thing is just a heavy thing for those people. They often don't return. The second group of people are the happy people. And you're like, what? People at Celebrate Recovery are happy? Oh, yeah. I've just found they really are the happy people. And I've seen this in other recovery environments as well. They're the happy people because they have learned to accept their problems. They've learned to accept the problems of others. And they recognized several things, that they can't fix their own problems. They can't fix the problems of others. They cannot rescue others. They cannot change the past. And having come to accept these things, they enjoy their time with one another. They find themselves getting freer. They find themselves emerging They find themselves free of the things that used to burden them down. I remember early on, I was one of those folks. I was the pastor that just felt like he was carrying the weight of all the problems of those folks who came to Celebrate Recovery. And I just felt the burden of the weight. And I remember somebody was talking to somebody else, but I overheard the statement, and he just said, acceptance. He said, it's all about acceptance. And I remember that it just kind of hit me in the moment. And the truth of the matter is, I actually bristled at it. I bristled at it and I pushed back and I said, wait a second, no, it can't be just about acceptance. Like, there's got to be accountability. Someone's got to do something about all of this. I thought somebody had to carry the weight. Somebody had to push through. Somebody had to do something about all of this pain. And this might be you. You might think you need to carry the weight of your disappointment with somebody else. You might need to think you need to carry the weight of your own discouragement. You might think you need to carry the weight of your disagreement with other people. You might think you need to carry the weight of other people's failures and your own failures. You might think you need to carry the weight of your reputation. I certainly thought that too. But I remember crossing the line. There's something about crossing the line and recognizing that I couldn't do anything about anybody's stuff. I really couldn't change anything. That what people needed from me wasn't my answers, but my acceptance. That as people were able to talk about what was going on in their own lives, as they experienced acceptance, as they are able to come to terms with the truth, they would be able to start finding the strength to become the hero in their own stories. I began to learn what Jesus meant when he said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke." His yoke is Jesus's way. And the yoke is like the way, what it looks like to follow him. He says, take my yoke. My yoke is easy, my burden is light. And once I came to a place where I was able to accept certain things along these lines, things began lightening up for me. Once I realized that there was a God in this world who can act on behalf of others, once I realized that each person was able to step into their own story, become the hero of their own story, I didn't have to carry it like I did before. And once I was able to talk about the things that I was carrying, it helped me see that it wasn't always what I thought it was in my head. Once I started experiencing a place of acceptance, I began talking about the things that I was carrying. And what would happen is I would carry it in my head, and once I said it, it just didn't look the same in the light of other people. And all of a sudden, well, what I felt about it changed, and I started seeing the junk that I'd been carrying for what it really was, not for what I had made it up to be in my head. See, Jesus accepts me and he accepts you as you are. And if you learn to accept yourself for who you are, and if you learn to accept others for who they are, you can trust that Jesus won't leave you for who you are. Jesus won't leave this world for what it is. And Jesus won't leave other people for who they are. But this means a couple practical things. And these are just a few practical things I've learned as a pastor. First, Jesus accepts reality, and we should too. A lot of us have a hard time accepting something because we want some other truth to be true. We want some other reality, or we have some hopeful idea about what the world could be or should be, or what this person could be or should be. The most hopeful thing we could do is just accepting reality for what it is. getting to the truth and getting things into light is the first and most challenging half of the solution to any problem. Once you can get it out there and see it for what it is, then we can respond to it. Most people, and this might be you, carry these burdens inside your mind and your heart, this weight of burden of responsibility, and you just don't need to carry it by yourself. Secondly, Jesus is the true doctor, and he can transform any situation. And I genuinely believe that there is no situation too dark that God cannot transform. But here's what I've had to come to accept, and I think this is an essential part of what it means around acceptance, is that I am not God. Oftentimes when things come into light, God transforms people's lives in ways I wouldn't expect. What this means is that God has a plan for your life that may be different than mine. That God has a plan for my life that is different than mine. Kathleen and I, we've, from early on in our marriage, even before our marriage, we believed in the power of gospel to change a life. And as we were getting married, we deeply believed in the power of the gospel to change the life. When things come to light, all of a sudden God will work and lives will change. And we had a list, each of us, of the things that we believed God was going to change in each other. And as we got married, we started getting to work with God on the things that we believed that He wanted to change in the other person. And as it came to, we got to the end of our first year, even our second year, and maybe even our third year marriage. And God wasn't He wasn't living up to the promise of transformation that we had expected of the other. But slowly but surely, the power of the gospel started having its effect. Not in changing the person into the spouse we wanted them to be, but changing our hearts to accept our spouse for who they really are. There's things about Kathleen that I would never want God to change, that I love about her. But if God met my demands on the front end of our marriage, it would erase the wonderful things that's given me so many gifts throughout the years. And there's things about me that I continue looking at Kathleen. I'm just so sorry. She's like, it's a package deal. I'm doing pretty well, she says. And there are things because of who I am that she has just learned to accept. And as I've learned to accept Kathleen for who she is, not who I want her to be, not who I want God to transform her into. As I've learned to accept her for who she is, who's been transformed? I have. Because now I enjoy her for who she is. Our marriage gets to enjoy the beauty of enjoying reality for what it is, enjoying a couple broken folks who are still figuring things out, but we get to do it together. And not with this fictional version of who we want the other person to be, but who we really are. This helps you, if you're single, this helps you because whomever you might be dating, you just need to understand that what you hope they might be, there's no promise that they'll ever become that. The person you've come to know is probably who they really are. Accepting reality for what it is and accepting somebody for who they really are is our greatest hope for enjoying them for who they are and enjoying life for what it really is. For a lot of us, we keep going through life from disappointment to disappointment because our unrealistic expectations become these premeditated resentments. We keep expecting something to happen politically for us that will line up with exactly what we want. We keep expecting something to happen in our family life to line up with exactly what we want. We keep expecting that we're going to perform at our top in the best way possible and be a person that we might not actually be. And we continue to experience disappointment because we are unwilling to accept the fact that we aren't God and that reality isn't what it actually is. But when we can align ourselves with reality, we can accept. And once we accept, we can begin enjoying life, enjoying people for who they are. We can be free of the burden of having to be God. We can be free of the burden of having to transform things or change someone's life into something else. Along the way in this journey, I learned the power of a simple prayer known as the Serenity Prayer. I'm going to read it to you and give you a chance to listen to it. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time. Accepting hardship as a pathway to peace. Taking, as Jesus did, this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it. Trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. I'm going to read that. I'm going to read that again, but let's make it our prayer together. I'm going to put this first person plural in there. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. The courage, give us the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference, that we might live one day at a time, enjoy one moment at a time, accept hardship as a pathway to peace, that we can take, as Jesus did, this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, but that we might trust that you will make all things right if we surrender to your will, so that we may be reasonably happy in this life and forever happy with you forever in the next. Amen. If you would, just close your eyes and put your fists in the air. And I want you to think of somebody who you might be struggling to accept. Maybe they're an opponent of yours. Maybe there's somebody who just disagrees with you or resists you or irritates you. And I want you to try this prayer out with me, saying, Jesus, today I choose to accept, and fill in the blank there, for who they are and not who I want them to be. Now open your hands and surrender. And Jesus, we can do this because you accept us for who we are. You didn't wait for us to clean up our sin. You didn't wait for us to clean up our past. You didn't wait for us to change our character. You accept us as who we are. Help us to live in the joy and the rest of your acceptance. Would you free us from the burden of having to fix everything, change everything, perform, to be God, change others. Give us the rest to know that you enjoy us, that you accept us. And God, out of that, may we accept others and your will in this world. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Marc, thank you so much for that sermon. It's so powerful to hear that Jesus' acceptance of us is what enables us to be accepting of one another. I have a song I would like to introduce today. It's called Make Room. And the bridge of the song says this: shake up the ground of all my tradition, break down the walls of all my religion. Your way is better. And I think sometimes the things that we hold on to that we think matter might not matter as much to God as we'd like to believe that they do. And this song is just a way for us to admit that Jesus' way is better, and we choose that. Let's sing it together.
to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. Oh, here is where I lay it down, every burden, every crown. This is my surrender. This is my surrender. Here is where I lay it down, every lie and every doubt. This is my surrender. I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. Shake up the ground, all my tradition, break down the walls, all my religion. Your way is better. Oh, your way is better. Shake up the ground for all my tradition, break all the walls, all my religion. Your way is better. Oh, your way is better. Shake up the ground, all my tradition, break down the walls, all my religion. Your way is better. Oh, your way is better. I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. I will make room for you to do whatever you want to do whatever you want to. Here is where I lay it down. You are all I'm chasing now. This is my surrender. This is my surrender. Here is where I lay it down. You are all I'm chasing now. This is my surrender.
Thanks for joining us. We are so glad that you worshiped with us today. We are getting excited for our 938 live events. And like I said earlier, we are going to be meeting at Thornbury Farm on June 6th at 10 a.m. If you want to, you can bring a picnic lunch plus a picnic blanket. I'll have mine. And we are going to hang out after the service for a time of enjoying hopefully pleasant weather and some fellowship. Another upcoming live event is the men's barbecue. If you are a young man or a man, I would love to see you there. If you're prepared to give, we are so thankful. Your giving fuels everything we do here at 938, and we are so glad that you chose to worship with us this morning. Have a great week, and we will see you hopefully at 938 Live.